it's exciting that you're doing the show on Friday. Ew.
Yeah, it's a cool opportunity. I guess the NERM and Facebook and Slay Music and a few other organizations decided to get together and offer this pretty cool stipend to a bunch of artists who want to do some live streams, and it's definitely helping us out in this pinch of a time.
Yeah, actually, I think that's a good way to start.
Yeah, it's the National Arts Center, which is located in Ottawa, and that's where they house the National Arts Center Symphony as well. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool because especially at a time like this, it's unfortunate when people have to perform live without getting paid, really, just because it's almost like giving art away for free in a way.
Yeah, I mean, I think live video has been around for a while now, so I mean there's a few artists that I know, that even some that I followed or that I see that actually kind of make a living off this, more like a Patreon account kind of funding,
Mm-hmm.
And they'll do some live improvisation or kind of like building songs. There's this one, I think his name is Mark Rebo or Mark something.
Rebele,
Rebele, yeah. And he just builds songs. You call in like this number and he builds songs for you. So there's people that have been using this business model, but it still feels kind of like the Wild West of live streaming, and I'm sure that this pandemic will kickstart a few trends, at least.
Yeah, especially with the live, because yeah, you're right. I mean, Mark Rebele has been doing it for a while, but it's for other musicians to try to jump in and try to learn. Such a steep learning curve, I feel like,
Yeah, I mean, I think there's basically things that you need to watch out for. Quality, I guess, being one of the most important. Audio and video quality. So that's definitely a hurdle. Other than that, I mean, if you have the setup, it's a cool. I think it's a cool medium. I've never used it before, so I'm looking forward to jumping in the water and getting wet on Friday.
Yeah, kind of, and I think it would be interesting for the musicians that hear this too. But what was it like to even just, when you thought about making a set list for a shortened live show?
Well, it's an hour long, so it's not really shortened. But
yeah, it's a normal show then, yeah.
It's kind of like a full show, but there's going to be a few surprises in there. Like, I like to keep it pretty loose, or have fun with the format. So tune in, because we're definitely going to be having fun with the format. I'll just say it like that. There's going to be some goodies in there.
Mm-hmm. And it's especially the audience interaction part, right? It's making that live show so similar to your normal live in person, at least.
Yeah, there's the whole aspect of it of, yeah, you can chat, you can do whatnot at the same time, and take requests if you're into it and stuff like that. So I think that generally that this pandemic and this kind of isolation period we're going through, in a lot of ways, it's making us realize how important the arts are in our day to day. And I think it'll, in the end, it'll probably show how irreplaceable a live performance is, and that there's a reason why people get together in one place to live a specific moment, and that will not be changed or replaced by technology.
Is that something that, do you find that, is that something that bothers you as a musician, that change to more technology-based music, or does it excite you? at this point?
I mean, I'm a classical guitarist by trade, so I definitely like to keep it simple. I've got a few pedals in my rig for electric guitar, but I don't go crazy with that stuff. But I think it offers a lot of opportunities. I think it democratizes the access to music and to making music at a certain level of quality. Mm-hmm. So if you buy any DAW, some kind of MIDI controller, like with 2.5 octaves, and a pack of cool drum sounds, you can make like the producer grade beats if you have creativity and the will to do it. So I think that I don't think it's bad necessarily. I think that it creates like this whole slew of music that's very like lackluster and normal. That has good audio quality, but that doesn't have good musical quality. And I think that things still need to be excellent to stand out, even with the technological, even with this technology helping out. So, I mean, right now, in the long run, who knows? Right now, I feel like it's definitely a feather in your cap if you can use it to your advantage. And even then, like if you're more of a how could I say, like traditionalist or whatever in the way that you handle your instrument and stuff like that, it makes you stand out even more. Mm-hmm. Because it's not even a requirement anymore. You know, you go to a festival and there's 100,000 people dancing in front of this EDM dude just standing there like pressing buttons and spinning records and whatnot. And not to diminish that craft, but people expect less out of a live show. Definitely. Mm-hmm. So if you can bring it live, then it distinguishes you.
Yeah, and you know, that's a really good point, because it changes. Even though it's easier for people to make music, there's still that level of quality that stands out, that you know, when you hear a track, you just know that it's better than the rest, or it's someone new versus someone that is experienced, or
yeah, you definitely, yeah.
And it's definitely changed. I mean, it's like, even with this podcast, it's really interesting seeing the mix of artists that have come on, because there's some who have written like 7 or 8 albums, and the way that they approach music and the way their music sounds is so different than another folk band that's only released 1 or 2
with the technology.
Yeah.
So, of all,
yeah, man, it's massive. The tech, and it even reminds me of an interview that I did with a artist named Dana Manning that made a whole album based on orchestral music.
Okay.
And she escaped her normal sort of like songwriting space, and then just performed in a massive church with the flute and a lyre and an organ, and then her voice. It's a really cool sound, but it's just avoiding tech almost.
Right. Yeah, there's always going to be movements towards or away from things. I think the best scenario, the best way to approach things is always just to be aware of the possibilities, at least to know kind of what's happening, and that way you can make a personal decision about what you'd rather do with your art, an informed personal decision.
And you've done that switch really well. The way that you move between Maclean and your solo work, and then now with your microclimates series that you're doing, it's really interesting. Just over the years, how you've managed to switch so fluidly almost.
I mean, it's not really. There's not really like a great plan. I kind of just, the microclimate page is just really interesting because it was something that I was doing basically, and I just started taking it a bit more seriously. Like I would just get up in the morning and warm up by just composing, improvising. And so I thought, well, why not, why not make that public? It's interesting. And then I started exploring, like throughout, I've done 113 now, I think, 112, 113. So and they're all about like a minute each. So that's like a lot of music. It's really cool. It's like a lot of,
wild, man.
It's a well of musical information that I got to create. And I've done a piece in every single key using different types of, techniques, arpeggiations, tremolo, scales, all sorts of cool things. Just as much as exercises as feel pieces, as impressions, that's why they're called microclimates, because it's kind of like a small rainstorm or like a small burst of sunshine or whatever it could be,
Yeah, it almost comes and goes on its own. Like it's there for a minute and then that's it. It just finishes and you go back to your day.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
And especially as a project, it's one of those. I feel like it, for someone that's non-musical, it shows that training process of what it's like.
I hope that it's educational too. That's why I try to be as technical as possible sometimes in like the descriptions. A lot of that project in particular, a lot of it is its goal is like a personal goal to learn how to modulate in different ways. Learn how to learn how to, like, modulation is moving from one key to another. So like I'm in A minor, I want to get to D minor, which has one flat. How do I do that? And so it's like all these different kind of place to another, and that people that are also exploring those kinds of things will find it useful and will find certain tricks, certain techniques that maybe they haven't thought of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good behind the scenes piece almost. Especially with classical guitar, it's one of those things that you see someone perform and you really underestimate how tough it is to actually pull them off.
Yes. I think that's the thing, that when you hear classical music, even like you'll hear someone play like a Mozart piano sonata or something, and you'll be like, "Oh, that sounds nice," but if you try to play one of those things, it'll destroy you. It's like it's intense, But it's like, for me, music is a lifelong journey, and so the I guess the challenges that I put in front of me, I see it as like as growing opportunities that'll take me like far into the future.
Mm-hmm.
I see those things as necessary, kind of like rights of to have access to other kinds of knowledge and mastery later on.
Yeah, that's definitely I think that is actually the right word. Like, rites of passage is, because going through even those 115, just to round it, even going through those 115 modulations, that's, by the time, now that you've done that, you've explored so much of classical guitar.
Yeah, it's definitely, and then you have that as a reference point. So every time you make a new one, you're also building upon this kind of this wealth of what you've explored before.
When it comes to that, are there some favorite key changes? Because then it's technical, but are there some that you find that you enjoy the most to actually switch from?
That's a good question. I think for me, like basically the first thing that I really loved about modulation was when I would hear in a song that someone modulates down like a minor third or something like that, and it just every kind of switch that you'll get will bring a certain mood. And I guess it started out as a challenge to see how can I get from completely indistinct keys to how can I make indistinct keys sound good together, sound natural. And I don't approach it in a really technical way. I tend to approach it in a more natural way. But I have discovered certain tricks. I mean, like using diminished chords, for example. Your diminished chord is like your best friend, definitely, if you want to modulate, because you can make, it's like a way of making any kind of chord like a dominant kind of chord, which will lead to a new tonic. And that's, for sure, that's like one of the most efficient ways of doing it. Of taking, like, maybe you're in a key with like 4 sharps and you want to go somewhere with 5 flats or with 4 flats or something like that. So like really I guess it's kind of like a long-winded way of saying that the interesting thing is the challenge of the modulation.
But I think that's honestly the best way to put it, though, because that I would agree. You know, like trying to challenge yourself to do something is kind of the fun in it. Like it doesn't really matter what the challenge is as an activity as much, but it is mostly that fact that you did something that's different. You found different ways to do it, and you grew from that.
Absolutely.
But is classical guitar the only thing that you would do this with, or do you find that you do this with other parts of other styles of music too?
I started using more modulation in my pop composing in general too, like with Maclean.
Right.
What's an example?
Which is good because
I've got this song that, yeah. What's that?
You answered the question I was going to ask anyway.
Okay. Yeah, like for example, I have this one song, and it's like, it's unreleased. I just recorded it in studio. It's called Cutie à la plage. It's kind of like a very like sunny, maybe like Beach Boysy kind of thing. And the key is the song's in B major, which has 5 sharps. I'm not sure how familiar you are with this.
Well, I'm not fully, but at the same time, like the people that are watching and listening.
So, what's that?
I'm not as familiar with the classical, but then again, the people listening and watching could also be, right? So
So I'll just give this one example because it's interesting, you know. So so the song's in B major, which usually has an A sharp, which is its leading tone. Right under it, you can also play in a kind of Mixolydian mode where you have like a flat 7, which is an A natural. So in this case, I'll be in B major, and then I'll do a rising chord progression that goes G, A, B to go back to the B. But I could also, while doing that rising chord, at a third, and this is the A, to fulfill a dominant function and then go to a D major. So it's like, and it sounds very natural. The thing is, like, it sounds technical to say it, but if I just played it for you, you would like, I guess I could like play it.
I mean, yeah, might as well if you're there in the studio.
Can you hear that?
Yeah, your sound is good. It comes through clear.
Okay. Well, basically the song's like in this key here, thing, and then you can do like a motion like, right?
Yeah.
So we're in B major. We're clearly in B major, but as you're doing the motion, you could also do a, and then, so now we've just modulated up a minor third,
Right.
you know? And so the original key of the song was this. I'll play it again. So we're in this key, and now, so now we're in this key here. So it sounds, it's like basically like the song's all in here, and then you go to the bridge. Then everything's like sunnier, you know?
Yeah, it feels bright.
You see, like there's like a brightening that happens. So like you can use tones to brighten, but you can also use a key change to brighten, you know? And going up a minor third is like it's like a cool thing, you know? And it's like basically like the B has 5 sharps, D major only has 2. So they're not very close as keys, but in a very natural way you can go from one to the other. So it's that kind of like those kinds of things that I'm trying to explore with the as far as like classical guitar, helping me grow as a musician in a general way.
Yeah, especially because you're able to actually apply it to so much music too. I think you know, like it can grow in so many ways in just normal pop music.
Yeah. I mean, and it's not like pop music uses modulation all the time. It's like I think in Good Vibrations by the Beach Boys, I think like it's crazy. He has like 5 modulations. It's pretty wild. But yeah, I mean, it's a good thing. Personally, it's like, it's that's very, very useful to know, I guess.
Yeah, and it's actually, and it's interesting too because it's something that you sometimes forget, I think, when you're listening to pop music, especially because you think that it's going to be simple 4-chord songs with basic lyrics, but in reality there's a lot of incredibly diverse pop music. I mean, even when you look at like the Talking Heads or other musicians where it's just incredible what they've done, and it's extremely technical and not simple at all.
Yeah. I think deceptively simple is a great thing. I think that it's kind of like a goal. I think a lot of that from like Brian, the composer, the deceptively simple aspect. So kind of like hiding all of the technical folds within this perfectly quilted blanket that just, you know, it's just comfortable or whatever, but really all the handiwork that made that blanket is, you don't think about it every time you lay down. You just put the blanket on, you know? But if you want to make comfortable blankets, you need to know what those details are.
Right. You need to know the tricks to sewing to actually make a comfortable blanket. Yeah. That's a great metaphor.
Etiquettes.
Yeah.
That's another example of modulation.
Man, it's actually like that's sort of, I'm kind of curious then, you know, like, or though, just because you like with your teaching, you are good at making things clear, just like how you related modulations and making simple pop music simple. Do you find that your teaching has made that easier for you to actually explore music yourself?
Um, yeah, I think like David Foster Wallace has a good spiel teaching. That he talks about how the old cliche of the teacher learning more than the student turns out to be true, but only for the first year or two, and then there are diminishing returns until you become like a grumpy academic or whatever that's stuck in his own like mind. You know what I mean? Like that. And then there's another cliche. But I do think that learning how to communicate ideas in a simple way is very useful. Yeah.
I think that is a good way to wrap it up. So feel free to follow this